good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are joining us from today, because as I say, we've got people registered from all around the world, so that's brilliant, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Lisa and I head up our events at Torchbox. And for those of you who aren't that familiar with who we are, we're a digital product and marketing agency, and for over 20 years we've been working with socially progressive and non-profit organisations around the world. And I'm very excited about this event today and hosting our first webinar with Wharton Interactive. Wharton are such an exciting and innovative organisation, and we've loved working with them over the past 2 years and being Wharton's design and tech and now digital marketing partners as well. And I'm delighted to introduce your stellar all-female lineup for today. We've got our very special guest, Sarah Toms, who's Executive Director and Co-Founder of Wharton Interactive, who, as promised in the details, is going to be sharing how they're transforming education with immersive learning experiences such as simulations and games. And we also have two people that are leading on the project with Sarah, and also your hosts for today from Torchbox, our product directors, Marnie Wilhite and Katie Cherry. So we've got 60 minutes today for the session. So we're going to go through the conversation, and then we've got some time at the end for questions. So we'll try and get through as many of those as possible. If you use the Q&A facility, it makes it easier to manage them, but we would like it to be interactive. So please do ask your questions. This is a webinar rather than a meeting, so you can see us right now, but we can't see you. And I am recording it because it's probably quite a lot of information to take in. So I'll be able to send it to you after, and you can watch it back at your leisure. I think that's all from me. So I'm now going to hand over to Marnie to get things going.
Thanks, Lisa. And Marnie, you are muted.
Muted, Marnie.
Of course I am. Sarah, welcome. It's been quite the journey that we've been on together for the past 18 months, from idea to getting products into the hands of your users. Since I've met you, I have been quite unsure how you find the time to sleep with everything going on at Wharton Interactive, which you co-founded a few years ago. Before we dig into the product side, would you mind sharing how Wharton Interactive started and what you established as the mission and vision?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, big welcome to everybody. Really happy to see folks interested in the work we're doing, and really excited for this conversation. And massive thanks to Torchbox for organizing it for us. So Wharton Interactive, interesting history, which really goes back well beyond, well before I even started at the Wharton School over 8 years ago now. We have a long pedigree in the interactive learning space. Starting with the Learning Lab, which began in 1999. And when I came, and my first job at the Wharton School was really leading the Learning Lab. Through that experience, we figured out that a formula, if you will, and also understood where there was impediments to entering into this space, into interactive learning. So on the one side, so much demand for bringing more active learning into classrooms. On the other side, understanding that it's very hard, very expensive, requires very specialized expertise to do this. And because of that, creates this sort of haves and have-nots especially in the serious game space. And so that really became one of my first missions when thinking about, how do we start to lower these barriers of entry and make this sort of capabilities that not just the Wharton School can start to capitalize and benefit from, but how others beyond the Wharton School, and beyond the Penn ecosystem as well. Through the Learning Lab experience, one of the first faculty I started working with was my now partner in crime, Ethan Mollick. And we really come from a very similar background in some ways and very different background in other ways. Similar, we both come from entrepreneurship space. We both led startups. We both think in a very lean startup-y way. He is a leader in entrepreneurship education. And he's also just an incredible visionary when it comes to how we bring games and how we think about gaming context in the learning space. And so all of this started to really gel as I was at the Learning Lab, and including starting to work on concepts in the open source space. How do we start to democratize access? When you look at standard simulations. They're very expensive to obtain and acquire. And then, like I mentioned, you have to have very specialized expertise to code and develop on those simulation platforms. And that really does create this sort of haves and have-nots of, you know, the Harvards and MITs and Stanfords and Whartons of the world, and makes it very difficult for everybody else just because of just purely the expense. And so in creating things like Simple, you know, this at our core, thinking about how we open source and how we democratize access. Moving into Wharton Interactive, we decided to create Wharton Interactive so that our #1 focus is really outward looking. The Learning Lab is really about supporting the classrooms, making the Wharton classrooms the best that they possibly can be. There's a reason where, you know, one of the best business schools in the world is because of teams like the Learning Lab. But what Ethan and I wanted to do with Wharton Interactive was to develop a new team, a new breed of team of experts. And we've just been really, really lucky with the team that we've been building. We wanted to build a hub in the marketplace that we've been, you know, partnering with Torchbox in particular, but many, many other vendor partners as well. And then we also wanted to work on platforms. And in working on platforms like alternate reality courseware, Idea Machine, Simple Plus, this is what allows us to now go faster, be more experimental, and then to also think about how we democratize access to the expertise that we're building. So I know that's sort of a long answer to the question, but you know what we're all about is openness, scale, and we want to build a new form of interactive pedagogy that becomes ubiquitous, that every learning experience becomes one where the learner is in the driver's seat. And that's really the point I make. You know, what is the best way to learn how to drive a car? It's to sit in the driver's seat. It's to understand, you know, to actually have that steering wheel in your hand, the pedals under your feet. And that's what we're doing with ARC, what we're doing with Idea Machine, and what we're doing with the engagement layer in our marketplace is we're building that vehicle that learners and educators can sit in the driver's seat.
I love the vehicle analogy. Those are really ambitious and inspiring goals. I'd be curious if you could talk to us about how you made this approach a reality, and maybe you can give us a glimpse of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a longer journey, to be frank, than I thought it would be. You know, when we started Wharton Interactive, we started with ARC, our alternate reality courseware platform. Just to describe what that is really a new breed of simulation where it brings to life a real-time narrative where you're interacting with non-player characters. We have a gaming engine that we've built at Wharton Interactive that delivers this form of pedagogy. So it's one part interactive fiction where you're immersed in this very realistic world. And that world could be, by the way, a trip to Saturn, which we've also created on ARC. It could be that you're running a startup. It could be that you're helping out an investor, which I'm just about to demo to you. And you're learning what makes, you know, how to assess businesses that, you know, this investor is interested in potentially investing in. So it's one part interactive fiction and role-playing game. Sometimes it's single player, sometimes it's with a team. It's one part gamified. So we've got leaderboards, we've got achievements and badging and all that kind of stuff. And then under the hood, what we're doing is we're really understanding what the learner is doing and what the learner needs to do in order to be successful. So we're providing a scaffolding process where the first time through that narrative, maybe you're very supported and we're really stepping you through it. And then we're taking you through and we're giving you feedback because we're seeing all your decision making and we're seeing where you're doing well and where you need assistance. And then you're coming back into the game, maybe with some spaced repetition added, and you're now you're less supported. You're being tested more, and and we're grading you and we're giving you points as you go. So I'm gonna just take you over to what we've created over in Wharton Interactive, if that's okay, Marnie, and kind of take you through what it looks like. So the other thing I should mention here is that and can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great. The other thing I should mention is we've been focused on two audiences. And if you go to interactive.wharton.upenn.edu, you'll see a marketplace or a catalog, which is really geared for individual learners who want to come and skill up and learn through these gaming experiences, which I'm going to show you here. And then we also have a catalog which is geared to educators who want to adopt our experiences and create their own private classes. And we've created, you know, a light learning management system within the interactive ecosystem where those educators can invite learners, invite other TAs. They can configure the different interactive options to launch, you know, on their time frame. It also, if you're a verified instructor, that's going to open up the ability for you to see our teaching notes and other instructional materials as well. So here we are. I am a interactive. I've gone through the logging in and the signing up process and registering my email. I'm going to go here and look at the Blue Sky Ventures game, which is our alternate reality course. And quite simply, at this point, all I have to do is scroll down. It's free. Add it to my basket. So what's happening here is we've actually, you know, so through our Wagtail website, we are doing call outs to Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Even though it's free, there is this light touch where you have to go through and order it. And then what that does is it puts you into my interactive and you've got the experience here. And because it's on demand, you can start it whenever you want. So at this point, we're going to start the experience. What this does is it puts you into the resources page. Here, there's a video introducing you to the experience by the experience's author, Ethan Mollick. And at this point, you can launch the game and go right into the ARC experience. So here you are on one of the dashboards. This is just helping you with some tools and tips. And we've got some fun little gamey, a little bit goofy, but that's my interactive fiction writers for you. And at this point, I can join in with the main non-player character. And I'll just show a second of this video.
You picked up. Oh, thank goodness. I am in so much trouble and it's all your fault.
Poor Tommy. So you can go through this and basically pick choices, have a conversation.
Fault. This, all of this, it's your fault. You were the one that told me to go out there and do something, and I did. And now everything's falling apart, and you've got to save me, please.
So I'll leave it at that. But and for anybody who's on this call, please do sign up and come and play Blue Sky Ventures. What you'll see in this experience is it will be delivering you feedback, resources, lecture videos as you go from Ethan on the different learning objectives about assessing businesses. And by the way, this experience is really lifted from his most recent book that has been released with respect to entrepreneurship and you know, launching successful startups.
I think, Lisa, you dropped the link in there, so if you guys want to check it out, you should be able to find that in the chat. And I will say it's really fun. So if you have the chance to go try out Blue Sky, I highly recommend it. And you pointed out some of the integrations we have, Salesforce. In that demo, there were several integrations with your partners. How did you go about picking technology platforms and partners to help you realize this vision?
Yeah, so again, this has been part of the journey, the discovery process for us. So again, this goes back to before Wharton Interactive and recognizing strength in Python, recognizing strength in Django. So as technology sets, you know, we were really delighted with what those different languages give to us. And then as we started to look at what we needed from a web presence, and this is, you know, we always envisioned what we've created with the Wagtail website has become the heart of what we do, right? So this is where all of our learners, all of our educators, this is the place they're going to come. This is the where we're going to be building the communities, where we're going to be providing that lifelong learning opportunity and touch points, you know, and we're really at the very beginning of building out that vision within our website as well. And so our colleagues over at Words, they were an early adopter of Wagtail, and really highly recommended it to us. And it was through our colleagues there that we started to look at Wagtail well before we were even introduced to Torchbox. Our very first website was on Wagtail. And then moving into the next version, that's where we started to integrate and have more conversations with Katie and the Torchbox team. The other pieces here, so the other pieces of the puzzle, we're building for scale. We want to be something, when you're looking at a mission that wants to democratize, you need to be ready for lots of numbers, right? And so that was the other aspect of this, was we didn't want to do sort of a, roll your own e-commerce solution. Again, at the Wharton School, we have deep roots in Salesforce, incredible partnerships there as well. And so that's where we went, was we started to look at what Salesforce could provide. We did actually we had a failed attempt. And so this is part of our own journey. We tried to use one offering that Salesforce has, Salesforce Sales Cloud, and do this, and it just wasn't the right fit. And then fast forward a year later, Salesforce Commerce Cloud became an option for us. It wasn't offered to the .org higher ed customers, and then it did become available. So Wharton Interactive's website is the first of its kind for higher ed using Salesforce Commerce Cloud. So that was the other really exciting opportunity for us. And then as we started to get into the discovery, we realized, I'm really wanted to make sure that this was a seamless experience. You notice, we were on Wagtail, we were then into Arc. There was no additional logins required. There was no additional account management. And this is where the Torchbox and the Salesforce Commerce Cloud teams that we were working with, we landed on a single sign-on option based on their recommendations. And, so we're using Auth0 as kind of our intermediary single sign-on option. So all of that it comes together in one seamless universe, but under the hood, a lot of deep thinking, a lot of incredible expertise that, we've benefited from to sort of make that seamless experience for, our users. So we feel very, very lucky from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I've been really impressed with the product culture that you've set up, and across not only, I think it's very aligned with Torchbox's way of working as well, but it's been really a delightful experience. I'd be curious if you might talk about that.
Yeah, so the other thing I should mention is moving into creating the engagement layer in the next version of the website with all the integration with our platforms. We were all planning to meet in person to begin that discovery process. So my director of live operations, Lena, and I, we were booking flights. We had, and we have a global team. We've got people in Colombia and in Canada and of course the UK and quite literally all over the world, that we were going to be flying into Philadelphia for a week of, whiteboard sessions to figure out, where one product ends and where one picks up, and, all that kind of design work. And the world changed, on a dime for everybody. And we had to switch that discovery process then into Blue Jeans and Zoom sessions and utilizing Miro boards and all that kind of stuff. So very quickly had to, transfer into a completely different way of operating. But we've been so lucky. So this is again where, we've really benefited from Torchbox and their approach to product. Where they brought immediately day one to the table the tools where we could collaborate, like Miro. We at Wharton, we use Atlassian, so we were able to immediately get up onto Jira and Confluence and start collaborating in this new digital space. But before going through what you're going to build and what you're going to solution, for me, and given that we had so many different technologists coming to the table, we had our legacy simulation technologists, we had our Arc team, we have the Torchbox team, we have our Salesforce Commerce Cloud team, et cetera, et cetera. This is a lot of folks coming together to figure out this sort of, thorny, complicated technology deliverable. The first thing we did start with, and I in particular thought about, was making sure that we have a team here where we don't really know each other well, and building a culture. building a culture where there is the psychological safety to raise your hand and say, I don't think that's right, or I have more questions, or, you know, like not assuming that, you know, everything that, you know, half the room is shaking their head that there may be somebody in the room going, I'm thinking about some edge cases here that you're not thinking about. And so what I would do was, you know, we'd get to sort of the end of a part of the, you know, the customer journey is just pause. Anybody thinking about something, anything we're not thinking about here, you know, just leaving room in the conversation to make sure that, you know, given you've got 16 little faces looking at you on your screen, that there's going to be an idea there that hasn't been yet thought of that may actually be very consequential, because if you haven't thought it through, and you may accidentally paint yourself in a corner in your design. So when I talk about innovating in this new culture of Zoom and Blue Jeans or whatever tool you're using, is really putting your culture at the center, and all the other aspects of what you're trying to do product or innovation wise around the edges of it. Because your culture is going to feed into everything else and is going to make everything else work so much better.
I think that's a really good learning, as you know, centering on the culture. I'd be curious, with everything you've done, if there are other things that you might share, other learnings you might share with our friends that have joined us.
So the other thing I would say is, you know, we, again, you know, and I promise to everybody who's listening, this is, you know, I'm not being paid by Torchbox. I mean, we have some secret weapons here, you know, and I'm looking at Anna and, you know, Neil and Kyle and Cam and all these just incredible, Stephen, all these incredible experts who brought their A game every single day. Thoughtful, they care about us, they care about the mission. We've been able to extend, and I feel connected in an extension of this, that it's not a vendor relationship, it is truly a partnership. And I think, as you know, when you are sitting there, you know, dependent on your vendors to bring their A game, is making them have as important a seat at the table as you have. Because at the end of the day, they're only as good as you allow them to be. So that's just something I would say. And each of them brings their expertise, and making sure that there's space for their expertise to shine is just very, very important as well. So I'd say, just going back to, you know, product management, clear requirements, a clear understanding of that whole journey, understanding those edge cases, laying it all out in, you know, beautiful Technicolor and a lot of detail, double checking all of that. And then the other lesson is, for me, who's got these high expectations, is being okay with lowering your expectations, being okay with going out with a minimally viable product, getting something done in a more lean, quick, realizing that, you know, the nth piece of functionality can come later. And that's something that, you know, I had to, through this, you know, we'd have really meaty conversations, and then I'd go walk my dogs and be like, but do I really need that feature yet? You know, so, you know, and just getting real with yourself and saying, no, that one can wait. I'm okay with that one waiting, you know. And so that's the other thing with this, is just having that kind of give and take, and realizing prioritization is really going to be your best friend in this process.
Well, so you've launched the first iteration of the marketplace towards the end of last year. It would be great to hear how it's going. Any early successes you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have not really begun marketing our educator-led side of the marketplace yet. And this is where we've got more of our existing simulations, like customer centricity, startup game, OPEC, etc. Folks are signing up in droves. So we have almost 100 verified instructors in about a month have signed up, which has been great. And on the individual learner side, launching Blue Sky Ventures this past Saturday. Again, we're getting very close to having 100 players. For me, we've had, you know, I'm looking at the support side of it. We've had 0 tickets. Not one of those players has reached out to our support team for assistance. So that tells me that we have delivered on that, you know, low friction, easy to use and easy to get into a pretty complicated under the hood. And I sometimes get told off, by the way, for getting so excited about the technology, but I have to say, like, I'm excited about the technology. It's, you know, it's amazing that we can leverage something like this that didn't exist a decade ago. And this is going to have an impact on how we learn. And when you look at how classroom education is delivered and how much it hasn't changed in the past, 1,500 years, and where it could change and it could benefit the educator and the learner, this is where I get excited about technology. So yeah, so we're just really, really excited about the kind of launch of the two sides of our catalogs, number one. And then number two, we're working on the next ideas of what we want to launch. And so one of them is, and we've just started utilizing this type of experience in Wharton classes and really road testing in Wharton classes, is something called data application. Data application is the ability for educators to have their learners code, do real analytics. Our first one is in partnership with Evite. Evite has given us 13 million rows of their actual customer data. What we do through the marketplace, and Torchbox and Lincoln Loop have helped us create this integration and automation, is every single learner gets their own EC2 instance with all that data, with a Jupyter notebook, and then they are going to learn. We're really going to help them crack open the AI black box. We're going to show them different machine learning algorithms. We're going to show them the trade-offs. We're going to show them how to code with all this data, how to do the feature engineering, and really what our goal is here at the Wharton School is to make Wharton Interactive the place to come for the future of data analytics education. And so with the launch of the data applications this summer, this is where we start to really turn up the heat.
It's very exciting to hear about everything that's next. And also congratulations on the traction that you've already gotten without any real marketing being done. I know we did actually recently work on some marketing with you. Can you tell us about how that's going?
Yeah, so where Torchbox is helping us with digital marketing and awareness is on the individual learner side, number one, also on brand activation. So this is the other sort of, steep incline that we have to overcome as a team is, yes, the Wharton School and the Wharton brand is incredibly powerful. Wharton Interactive is a complete unknown. And what we're doing in the interactive learning space is also a complete unknown. So Torchbox has been helping us with the brand activation of Wharton Interactive specifically, and then is also helping us with the marketing of our individual learner experiences. So, and we're really delighted with the responses we've already had, and this has only been, we've only been really starting to let the world know who we are in this past month as well.
Yeah, that awareness phase, actually getting your name out there is so key, right? Before you kind of move into that next phase.
Absolutely.
Sarah, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share with all of us. It was really amazing. And I feel like I learned something new about your journey every time we chat.
Thank you. I can't thank you all enough for having me. This has been really, really exciting.
Well, Lisa, we have time for questions. Do we have any from our friends that joined us?
Yeah, we do. We have lots of time. That was brilliant, Sarah. Thank you. And we have whizzed through. I feel like you need a little breather, Sarah.
If you want me to talk about other stuff, I've got other. No, I'm just kidding.
So we've got your friend and colleague Jennifer Leonard has a question for you, and she obviously starts with saying, "Sarah, you are a rock star," which is obviously true.
Love you too, Jen.
And so her question is, "Thank you for sharing your experience. How do you lead your team in bouncing back after failure?" Is the first part of the question.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe for me, this is about mindset, right? And when you are innovating, having failure is just par for the course. And I guess I don't see failure as failure. You know, I see failure, and I'm trying, the reason I'm like pausing here is I just don't want to sound like, you know, one of those cheesy postcards or something, but I truly mean this. Pivoting and learning from what reactions are. So let's just get more real about this. So you're designing something in the room with the folks you're designing, even the best experts, you're not going to get it completely right. Like, absolutely guaranteed, when you launch the thing, there's going to be things you've missed. There's going to be issue. Like a great example is when we first launched our marketplace, we realized that there was confusion over the login screen. You know, so when folks were coming in and registering, we were taking them back to sign up rather than the login. So it was a miss, right? And so people were signing up multiple times, which was silly. So learning from these feedback loops is so important, number one. Number two, trying not to be so precious that you're waiting for absolute perfection, which frankly does not exist. It absolutely does not exist, because until you get it into a completely novel, untested audience, somebody who's never seen this idea and is coming into it, you know, for the first time and engaging with what you've created. And this goes beyond technology development. This goes, you know, the classes you create, the marketing campaign, everything that gets created has to go through a testing process with an audience that has never seen it before. And so what I would say is failure is par for the course, number one. Number two, it's also okay to, and we just recently have had this with one of the products that we're working on, was we came to a crossroads with it. And there was a question of, do we continue the way we were before, or do we do a radical pivot with it, or do we stop doing it altogether? And being okay with letting go of ideas that have kind of run their course is the other part of being able to not carry dead weight or debt along with you. So, you know, I guess hopefully I've answered your question, Jen, but, you know, just embracing failure, it would be my, thank you, would be my motto, and not being too precious. You know, just get the thing that you were working on, your little baby, get it out into the world and be open to that feedback.
We did a breakfast event on this before as well. We kind of established that mentality that you're talking about is more common with a startup. So when you are innovators and you're more open to learning from failure, and you can kind of be quite proud of it and go, yeah, we're going to give it a go. But when you're a non-profit or a charity and you have donor funding and things like that, there's a big fear of failure. And so they might not be willing to try things to fail. They'll kind of avoid it at all costs. But because you are an innovative startup, maybe that's, you know, you can do these things, which is great.
And I agree. Just to follow up on that, Lisa, and, you know, going back to Marnie's question, is transparency and authenticity. You know, so those are two other aspects of, you know, which I feel is very important as the leader of this team, is just making sure that, you know, we're able to authentically share when things are not going right. And it might not be the product, it might be the process, right, et cetera, et cetera. So also recognizing those things too is, I think, very, very important.
Absolutely. And we've got one more question from Jennifer, because she got them in quickly, so I'm just doing them in order as they came through. She said, are there challenges to building a new brand from an established organization? What are the challenges, because you're essentially launching a startup from within a very storied institution?
There are, and I, you know, again, so we began Wharton Interactive with a very small investment from the school. You know, it was like we love this idea. We think we understand what you're talking about. Here's a few $100,000 to go prove it out and see what you can do with it. And in the technology space, that's basically like $10, right? It did, you know, it's just, to get something like this started was hard to do. And what we've been slowly but surely doing is getting, you know, our internal Wharton culture aligned with sort of the ideas that we have, but you can't boil the ocean either, you know, so it's small steps. And sometimes there have been setbacks, and sometimes not. Sometimes there's just been a rush of enthusiasm that's just kind of like helped us to kind of get to the next stage. So for me, it's recognizing that I have a responsibility to also understand where, when a conversation hasn't gone well, there's something that I need to change, I need to improve in how I describe, how I win hearts and minds with respect to what we're trying to do here. But what I would say is, again, going back to even my experience at the Learning Lab, there is so much demand for this. And because of the barriers of entry and the fact that we're now removing those barriers of entry, the number of faculty who are reaching out to me every day is just tremendous. People are dying for this stuff. And so we're just really excited that we are in the place that we are, and we're ready to now start onboarding other authors.
Brilliant. It's kind of easier then that it is a new brand and you're not trying to do it as the established institution, because then you can learn and say we're finding our feet with this.
Yeah, and we're benefiting from the Wharton brand, and it's, there's absolutely no doubt about that as well.
Brilliant. And we also have a question from Robert, who I think you know as well.
Hi,
Can you describe the decision? Can you describe the decision process when you have to ignore or discard the edge cases?
Ignore or discard the educators? The edge cases. Sorry, I thought you said the educators. I'm like, oh my gosh. The edge cases, we are not ignoring or discarding the edge cases. What I'm talking about here is adding the extra bells and whistles. So where we've wanted to take the functionality to the next version before we're ready for that, has been, where I've been checking myself before. I'm like, okay, instead of making something that's going to take the technologists a week to develop, do we need to do that, or can we do something that takes a day to develop and put it out there and see what people think about it before we over engineer? So that's the other thing I wanted to just say is, this desire to over engineer can be the death of any product. So just checking yourself along the way, and is there an MVP version of what you got in your head that you can get in the hands of folks and get that feedback, because the feedback will probably make something that isn't your V2. It's going to be a V better, right? So
extremely good advice that we're always trying to share with people as well as an approach. And we have a question from Michael Cheetham, who said, which third-party integration proved to be the most difficult to date?
So I'm smiling here, and I'm sort of, so it's probably with our older simulations. So with what's been really great about most of the integration is that Wharton Interactive has built the platforms from the ground up. So when you look at the alternate reality courseware platform, from the first line of code to what you see today, that's all us. With our older simulations, they are actually built on a legacy simulation platform, which just made the integration with Auth0 and the marketplace just a little bit more just turbulent, I would say. We did it, but it just was a little bit more complicated because we didn't own all the way down to, the bottom. Like the APIs were the APIs, and we had to sort of work with what they were. For the platforms that we have developed completely at Wharton Interactive, we can create whatever APIs we want. So that's made that process far, far easier for us. And then the other thing I would say is, we haven't talked about Salesforce Commerce Cloud. That integration was also very easy. So through the discovery process, led by Neil on the Torchbox side at the time, and then OSF as our Commerce Cloud integration partner, we decided to actually go with a headless Commerce Cloud option, because we wanted to make sure that we weren't changing what Commerce Cloud does well. Because of the nature of this catalog and marketplace, and the individual learner side of it, which walks and talks a lot like maybe a Coursera, and the educator side of the marketplace, which walks and talks a bit more like a Harvard Business Publisher or a study.net, etc. This is very, very different business layers. And so we decided that all of that custom work should be done in our engagement layer, leaving Salesforce Commerce Cloud to do what it does best. The other complicated integration was with our credit card. So at the University of Pennsylvania, we have one credit card vendor, and we wanted to make sure that we integrated, 3DS and fraud management and other protections to make sure that, the credit card process was very, very secure. And just getting through all of those steps was pretty complicated, quite frankly. But again, we got there.
All the challenges that you've overcome, which is the main thing. Katie, are there any questions that I've missed on the chat? Or are we? I think we're all right.
Yeah, I think we've covered them all.
Okay, brilliant. Well, Sarah, I think we've covered everything, and it's an incredible project that we're so proud to be part of as well. And I know that you guys have been in workshops today, still working hard on loads of exciting new things, and spent a lot of time together already. So I really appreciate you doing this as well. And thank you, Marnie, too, for hosting. And I think that's about it. We can wrap up.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, and thank you to everybody who attended.